So let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic. So having clause, right? So having clause, what is this? So we always have to remember the order. It is very important to remember the order, right? So we know when we have to write a statement, the select come first, from come second, like from which table, right? And the where come third, and then the group by which we did yesterday come fourth, and if we using even having, that come fifth. And we need to remember, as I said, order by always come the last as well. Kancha, Aisha need a permission. Can you grant her the permission so she can record as well, please? All right. So the having clause, what did having clause do? Right. So the having clause was added on the sequel because where cannot be used with the aggregate function. What does that mean? So remember, we learned this min, max, count, average, and sum, right? These called the aggregate function. So if we have to use the aggregate function, like if we have to fetch the values, where the values we say the values of like the count greater than 5, right? So that's we cannot use with the where clause. When we use the where clause, we can say where price is greater than 5, right? That we can use with the where clause. But when we have to say where, but when we have to use like the count all, right? Min, max, or average, for that in the search condition, we have to use having. We cannot use that under where, and we'll get to know with the example later on. So here, if you see that the following SQL statement lists the number of customer in each country, only include countries with more than 5 customers, right? So it's always come to a situation for us where we have another condition as well that cannot fulfilled by the where clause. Because if you see here this count, right, count is a part of the aggregate function. If we use the where, it will not work. So let me show you this example if it's okay. So let's say normally, so we read it that where come over here, right? So we're supposed to come over here. Let's took out this one and use it over here, right? And if we run it, right, as per a general theory, it should work, right? But throw the exception. And why throw exception? We just read it that we cannot use the aggregate function with the where clause, right? If it is something like, like this, right, where the customer ID is greater than 5, this will work, right? But when we use the aggregate function like this one, that has to go with the where the having condition. We cannot use it over here, right? So if we have to fetch data, excuse me, then we have to use. So now what's trying to say is saying select count all customers, right? So here is doing a count for all customers and the country as well from customer table. Group by country. So we have to group by, because remember I said like whatever come outside the, it can be 10 columns, right? Then all 10 columns need to be listed in the group by if it is not part of the aggregate function. And then we saying that having count customer ID. So what we trying to do, we saying that fetch data from the customer tables where the country has more than 5 customers, right? So fetch, like, it's this doing a count, right, on all the customers based on the country. We're doing a grouping based on the country, and now we putting a condition where count customer ID is greater than. So fetch all the data for the countries where the customers number of customers are greater than 5. So if you see, this is 9, 11, 11, 7, 5. And if I do a reverse, like less than 5, like this, so you will see different records here. You see all of them will be less than 5, and here is the country name, right? But right now it asks us to have this condition over here. I use a lot having when I have to find any duplicate data. And like how we find a duplicate data is like if we find out like any duplicate data. So let me give you example of that. So select all from customers, right? All right. So if I run this, right, SIO, okay. Right, so select all from customers. So I have been given a task like find out the if the countries are duplicated, right? Or either like let's go with the countries duplicated, and most of the time I have to do a cleanup, right? So we have to find the duplicate data. Right now I'm planning to find a duplicate based on the country, right? So if I say select count country, okay, so I did a count on the country, and then I get another column saying country, right? So if I run this, it will not work because I don't know it's working, but it will never work because it's giving this aggregate function. For that, we have to use a group by over here, group by, and then we'll do the country name here, right? So it will group all the countries like this. See, so it grouping all the countries from that table is saying Argentina 3 times, Austria 2 times, 11 times, 11 times, 5 times, but there's few with a 1 as well. 1 means there is a single record, but what I'm trying to find, I'm trying to find the duplicate, right? Now I cannot use a where clause because I have to find a duplicate data. So for that, I have to use a having. Then I'll say having count. I'll say count country is greater than 1. So that's how I can find a duplicate data. Normally, that's what I run. So if it's gonna bring all the records, right, for all these countries, and then I use another SQL statement, fetch this data into variable, put it into that, and maybe delete and update or do something like make this data clean up. But that's why we use the having clause, because with the where clause we cannot use the aggregate functions. Like these are the aggregate function, right? Count, min, max, all. And for that, having is same like basically where clause, right? But where we cannot use with the aggregate function, that's why we use the having clause. And then order by always goes in the last, so we can say order by country, right? So it's gonna bring all the countries in ascending order. Let's do descending because it looks like it's already in ascending, so it reverses the order. All right, so that is that example, and I think it's the same thing. Select count all on customer from customer, group by country, having customer ID greater than 5. So it fetch all the data about the country and group the count of the customer ID inside that is saying, okay, we have 13 customer in USA, 11 customer in Germany, 11 in France, 9 in Brazil, and 7 in UK, right? And now we fetching all the data which are above 5. There might be few which are above 4 as well, right? So see, customer greater than 2. So it bring more data, right? Greater than 2, we have 3, 4, and 5 as well. So, and any other example, if we go more having examples over here, let's see what's doing. So we use it all the time. Like over here, you see it's like select employee. This is the table area, right? Employee, right? It's getting table area. Last name is fetching it in from the employee table, the last name, and doing a count on the order, right? So when we doing a join, right? The count can be like the aggregate function can be on another column as well, because that's coming from the other table over here on the orders table, right? As this is the column area from orders, and then we did an inner join on the employee table, and this is the condition based on the employee ID, right? On the order table and the employees, right? Group by last name. So because this one was on the aggregate function, right? And this one, the last name wasn't part of this count. So, right, that has to go in the group by. And it says having count order ID greater than 10. So it will fetch all the data from these two tables which have a count of a order ID greater than 10. So that's the number you see, number of orders with the last name. And over here we use the inner join as well, right? And inner join, you know, is the most common join, which bring the common data between the two tables. So that's that as well. And I think it's further getting complicated. And it's normal, right? It's just like two tables we joining. Usually we join 8 tables, 10 tables, and we do put like data like that on separate. Over here, if you see, it's doing a select last name from the employee table and doing a count on the order ID from the orders table, and it giving it a column area as order ID from order tables in a joint employee table based on this employee ID on both the tables, which is common, where last name is equals to, now he's putting further conditions like where last name is equals to Dovilio or last name is equal to Fuller. So it's looking for two of these last name data basically, and he's doing a group by last name, of course, because you see this is not inside the any aggregate function, so that has to come in the group by, right? And then it says having count, right? And on the count is saying the order ID should be greater than 25. So it did find a video, and he has placed almost 29 orders. So, and the most important thing for you to remember that having we use it when we have to look for a data with the aggregate function, these called aggregate function. Otherwise, we can use a where clause, right? But if it is something with the aggregate function, we have to use a having. Where do not work with the aggregate function. So if we put this one, I don't know, it should not work. I don't know if it work over here. So I don't know. But it should not work. Like you're doing where count is, so it should not work. It should throw exception, and it's saying that what aggregate function count. So that's an aggregate function, and we know that the aggregate function should go in the having, not in the where. So it work exactly same way how the where clause work, but has to be go in the having. Plus, always make sure you're doing a right order. So select and then from, and then if you're joining it, do the joins. Then here come the where, group by, having, and order by always come in the order by always come in the end. So yeah, that's what having clause do. So any question on the having clause?
Sadhvi, can you use and for having function as well? Like if you want to do greater than 5 but less than 10.
Greater than 5.
Can you do and here?
I have not done it, but that's a good question.
So greater than 5 and less than 10, let's say.
It won't come up, right? You see the number is 29, so it has to be to have a condition.
No, not on this one. For the total, the others that you.
No. I'm saying to like it still get the result to see if the end is working, right? But you want to do here, but we know that and will not work with this aggregate function, right? For the aggregate function, we have to use having only, right? So you want just to take out this count and just keep the order ID greater than, you want to say like this? Just take the count out, right? Because if it is having a having, then it will not work with the end. It has to come with the having, right? Because where or and will be the same. They go with the without the aggregate function with the conditions, but we can try like this, but let's say less than 30, right? So something like this. Yeah, so this will work and will work over here, right? And we can use over here. But with the aggregate function, let's try that as well. I have not tried it, but as per the theory, it should not work, but let's just try.
But you're giving it a name. So if you take out the last name matching, then let it pull all the records which are more than 10 and less than 30. So.
All right. So take this one out, right?
Right.
So we have to put something in the on the where, right? Because the where come first. So we can use this condition, right? And what you want in the where condition then here? Because we cannot put and right next to the join, right? It has to come up with a where first, and then we use a second condition as an and or. But as per the order, where should always come first. So here here it is. And what else you're looking for there?
No, but it's not giving the result. If not on this one, but on the previous or the one before that, there's
Right.
example, even, yeah,
Right.
this one. So it's giving you 11, then 13 is the most, and 1 is the least number of orders.
Right.
So here, if I wanted to get out the, take the list of countries with more than 5 orders but less than 10, then how would I get
Oh,
that?
so you looking for a range, right?
Right.
Let me try that. How many? But let me try. So you're giving a range, right?
Yeah, here it
So,
says having count customer ID greater than 2.
right.
And
if you say this, right, and less than, no, greater than 2 and maybe less than 15, right? Something like this. So you see the result, did it went down? Maybe I'll do 10 to see. So you see the result went down, right? Here.
Okay, so it is showing it.
It's greater than 2 and less than 10 then.
Right. So you can use the and.
I think we using here, and we have to practice when we work on the SQL developer. The reason is this platform just not support the Oracle thing. It support the SQL server. It support the Access as well. Because you heard from me, like some of the conditions, I say it might not work.
But they are working.
What I do, but it's working here. So it's supporting multiple platform right now. But as far as we concerned right now, it seems like it's working, right? It's working over here. So we can have like a greater than and a less than condition like this.
Okay.
Right. So that's a good question.
So this group by syntax, it puts the number of same countries in one order. Is that correct?
Yeah, it depends like how you did it in the select statement, right? It is a pair between this select statement and the group by, right? Where you put it over here. If you do an average of something, the group by over here will be doing an average. So it's a combination of this column and this column, how the result group by come up with, right?
So I'm like, instead of customer ID could be anything, and then we are basically selecting customer ID, country, group by country. So basically,
are you breaking up? I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Are you using headphone? Maybe you can talk without your headphones, so it might work better. I don't know.
I'll maybe ask you, Shepard. I don't want to waste time on the class.
Maybe you can write it down, your question. So basically, if you're asking about the group by, right? So group by, it group by everything what you put over here, right? And then the columns right next to it. So the group by basically is a combination of the select statement and then the group by of what, right? Even you putting these extra column here, right? Country, as of now, you can say, yeah, it's grouping by, because you asked for the count here, right? You did a count for customer ID and asked for the country, right? So it grouped all the countries with the same name inside a count, right? If you're asking for the average here, then it will group by all the countries, but it will provide you an average over here, right? But right now, because you did a count, so what it did like you can do a sum here, right? Here, the result, you see, it sum up all the customers' ID over here with the group by. So that's what I'm saying. This is combination of this and this. It's just not standalone, right? If you did an average over here, right, what it will do an average like of all the customers' ID, right, based on the country. So it group all the countries, but again, it look for this as well for the outside result over here. So it's a combination of basically what you're trying to select and then how you're trying to do a group by. And then as you practice and put different aggregate function here, you'll see the result. So now, right now, even you group by, right? but you put aggregate function of min here, right? So what did it do? It grouped all the country over here, but it gets you the result what you asked for, like minimum customer ID. It bring all the minimum customer ID for all these countries. Now, if you do max, it will bring all the max ID, like whatever the max ID that country has. So that's why I'm saying this group by is just not a standby group by standalone. It's a combination of this and this column, basically how the result will come up based on the country. You have to practice, right? Over here, keep changing the aggregate function, come up with the situation you thinking could be the best one, and then you keep running the script and you will see multiple record and you get first confused, and then as you keep running, you will see different result, and hopefully that will clear your concepts. So I guess I don't know if we'd have the answer yet or not, but.
Can you hear me now or no?
Right. So, and then anybody else question on the having? All right, so it looked like anybody has question on the having, so we can go into the exist. I didn't use much this exist, but they can ask question about the exist function. This is an old one, but sometimes people do use it. So the exist operator, what does it do? The exist operator is used for the test for the existence of any record in the subquery. So what is subquery? I told you if there are query inside query, that is called subquery, like query inside query, right? The exist operator return true if the subquery returns one or more records. Techniques question. Exist syntax. So that's how the syntax should be, right? Select column name from table where exist. Here we put the exist, and this is called the subquery because that's the main query and that's the inner query. So what's trying to say, select column name from table where condition. So if that comes true, right, then it will evaluate against the second query as well. If it doesn't come true, I think we have the exist and we can use not exist as well, which is exactly opposite to the exist. And hopefully when we go to the examples, we will have a better idea how it works. So the following SQL statement return true and list the suppliers with a product price less than 20. First of all, the main important thing is you need to read the statement and understand the statement first. If you understand the statement first, then it will make your life easy, even if you can go ahead and so what we're trying to do first understand. So there is a main query. What is doing? Select supplier name from suppliers table, right? This is the first thing and what the second query is saying, where, okay, where condition exists. So it's looking for a Boolean, like a true value, right over here. We're saying if this come true, then fetch all the record, this record for me. And now what we're doing in the subquery, select product name from product table where product.supplier ID, which is like the product.supplier ID is equals to supplier. This is the supplier, right? Dot supplier ID. So we're doing a joining condition between this product table and the supplier table over here in the where clause. And we're saying, and the price is less than 20. So if this condition comes true, it will bring the result from this table as well. So over here. So these are the 24 records which are common in both tables and has a price less than 20. Right, and I think the same way it worked, if that is true, then bring in, we can use, I think, not exist as well. Sometimes we use this as well, and it will fetch 5 record. What it's saying, if this don't come up for true, so right, like if this is coming false for those products, right, then get the supplier name for me. So these the supplier which have a product price higher than 20. So that's why, and they are also in the suppliers table as well. That's why it's fetching these 5 names. All right, so I know it's a little tough. but we need to read the script first. So let's understand this one first. What it's saying: select supplier name from supplier table where, and that's how the syntax is. We type exist and it's saying select product name from products where product.supplier ID is equals to supplier.supplier ID, right? So we know that supplier ID is common between this table and this table. So how we did, this is the table area. We can put it over here as P, and we can put it over here as well, and change this one to P just to make more sense of it, right? So now we using the table area, product or supplier, and we saying, and the price is less than 20. So now it's bringing result of 24 record which have a price less than 20, and they also available in the supplier table over here. So that's how. And if we do the other way of it, not exist, so what it will do, it will bring which have less than 5. I put the parentheses because the sub query always come up in the parentheses. So the main query, that's how we identified it. What is the main query and what is the sub query? So if it is outside without any bracket, that is a main query. If it is inside bracket, this is a sub query. And as we know, the things inside bracket run first, then that's called the inner query, and that's called the outer query. So always things inside the bracket run first, they bring the result, and then based on that result, the outer query works. So we have a parenthesis because we know this is an inner query and this is a sub query, and the sub query always come inside the bracket. This is one of the question I've been asked, so I just answer why we have this parenthesis on this select statement, but not on this one. So let's see more examples. So it's saying following SQL statement return true and list the suppliers with the product price equals to 22. So let's look for this one. So we're saying select supplier name from suppliers where exists. So it looking exists means if that's come true, then return me the list of this, right? And I can show you on this one as well, like what if it doesn't come true, right? So let's say over here. So what if I say, let's make this a false statement and see if the answer come up, right? So we still see that these one have a price which is higher than 20. So let me higher this number to maybe 100, right? So it's still 2 of the supplier have a price higher than 100. Let me do 1,000. Now no result, right? Why no result? Because this script bring the false result, right? There is no product which have a price higher than 1,000 and they available in this supplier table. So that come as a false, right? And we saying here when exists, then provide me this name. When doesn't exist, then there'll be no result. So that's why if you see, right? So we can find out over here. Right, so this supplier has only one supplier which have a price higher than 200. So that's why. But if all the condition inside that query come false, then we will not see the supplier name. If you see this one, that still work, but I think that should be lower than 300, right? And how we can confirm it? Let's confirm this. So this is inside. So let's see the price. So we can do select all from, and we can do this supplier table, right? And we can do inner join, and what we want in the inner join at product, right? And the where we can use this instead of where with the on, we know with the inner join we have to use on, right? And now the first one will become where. So we can run this one, take this one now. All right, so that's a syntax error. Let me see. Oh, don't take the inner. Select all from suppliers, inner join, product P on suppliers. That should work. I don't know why it's not. Oh, there's a bracket over here. No result. Okay, because it was under 250, I guess. Something. So you see, this result do pop up. So this is the supplier ID for this one. This is the supplier name which pop up above 250. Just one record. If you can, like, this is the contact name, address, France. And if you see the last, it has a price of 263. So when we were running this condition, right, the exist condition, that is true till 263.5, right? You see this one, no, greater than is saying. Okay, so it's true till 263.4, I guess, right? Because it has a, so as soon as we do 264, that condition becomes false and it didn't bring any result. I think that was a good example we just went through. Now, so the sub query always come as a second, not as the first query. But the way I did inner join, we can use it, do it that way as well. So there is a different mean doing the same things, right? We can do the inner join to pull out the same value, but some people do use exist. So there are different way of doing different things. So there was a question saying, so the syntax where exists, you didn't put anything in the middle. How is putting the subquery into the main query? So with the inner, we can use the subquery in the main query as well, like the way I just showed you guys, right? That is the way if you have to use something with the main query. So you have to use the join like this one. So there is a different way of approaching different things. So that's how the exist work. Sometimes some people still use exist. I don't use it, but it's good to know. They can ask you. You should have a concept, right? Exist means the inner query come true to return the answer from the outer query. Anyone has any question? Otherwise, we'll take a 10-minute break for Maghrib and we'll come back. All right, so let's take a break of 10 minutes and we'll be back at 8:35. All right, so it's 8:45. I hope you guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we did the exist just now. Exist, let's read it again. It say exist operator is used to test for the existence of any record in the subquery, right? So we know like the query inside query is subquery. So how we identify this is a subquery? So whatever come inside the bracket, that's called the subquery. So this is called the outer query. This is called the inner query. And this inner query runs first, bring out the result. And based on that result, the outer query work, right? And with the exist, we understand when these conditions come true, then the outer query run and bring the result for us based on whatever the result come up from the inner query. So this is basically the definition of how the exist work. SQL, any and all. I haven't used these at all, but we can quickly goes into, we don't want to waste the time because this is not something very important. We have a lot, not just these, we have a lot to cover other than these as well. So return Boolean value. I don't know if I teach you guys this as well. select column. What is saying that the operator must be standard comparison operator. Okay, so these are called comparison operators. Like this one, we read it that these called aggregate function. The is equals to less than. These are comparison operators. Okay, so say return boolean. Boolean is basically like a data type. We call it like it come as a true and false. For that kind of a result, we call it a boolean value. It's usually come up and true and false. Right. All right. So let's see the syntax for this one, how this works. So saying the following SQL statement lists the product name if it find any record in the order detail table, right? Quantity equals to 10. If written true, because the quantity column has some. So it is more same like in exists, right? Where we saying the select product ID from the order detail table where quantity is equals to true, right? And that getting a result, then we'll have the product name, right? So that's how we can run it, right? So it's saying 31 record, we find it, right? And it's bringing those results. And what's saying select product ID from order detail table where quantity is equals to 10. Now we know this is inside these parentheses, right? The bracket. So this is a subquery running and we saying product is equals to any, right? And then if their product is equals to any, that's come true, which has a quantity is equals to 10. So we have like 10 results getting this result. Don't worry about this one for much, but let's go in one example. I'm not going to give you this in task as well because I haven't seen anybody using this nowadays. The following SQL statement list all the product names, right? Like we can see this select all. So I think it's more like a, we can even do this, right? Oh, it has to be using all because where condition is equals to true. Select product name from product where product is equals to all. We using all operator here. Select product ID from details. So what is the difference between any and all? If the following SQL statement lists product name is equals to all, then the record in order detail table has a quantity is equals to 10. This will of course return false because the quantity column has many different values or not only the cat. So this bringing 10 results, right? So the following order equals to 10. Okay, now it's saying that this should all match with this inner result. If this all didn't match, so now the Boolean value coming as a false, so it's not returning anything. And I haven't seen we using this, so don't worry about it. If you have time, you can go over with it. If not, then don't worry. The select into is like important, but we can go over with it. So what the select into statement do? The select statement copy the data from one table into a new table. So sometime when we working onto, no, if we working onto a table, right? One second. So if we're working onto a table, right, and we have to manipulate that table, maybe do some delete, update, and insert, and we know the data is important and we don't want to lost anything. So what we can do, we usually make a backup of that table, right? And then we can start using that backup table to mess around and do anything. So we know we're not going to lost any data because we copied the exact same table with the same data as another table, right? And how we can do, we can use select into statement to copy that data. So if you see the syntax here, you see select all into. So this will be the battery low one. Okay, you see select all, right? Into. This is the new table name. All right, so that's the new table name in, and then if you have to do mention the database name as well. I haven't done this, but you only use this in condition if you have to mention any external database to it, right? Otherwise you take out this completely. So what you're going to do, select all into, this is the new table name from old table name where. If you have to put any condition, you use where clause. If you don't this where clause, what it will do, it will copy the entire table and paste it into as a new table. That's it. And this is the old table name we should match, and the new table name, you know what to define as a new table name. So copy only some columns into a new table. How you can do it, rather than doing a select all, you can specify those column name, right? And you say into, and this the new table name, and then from old table, and where if you still have a condition, right? So remember when we were doing earlier inserts, right? On those earlier insert, we cannot use the where condition. We only use the where condition when we do update or delete. But when you copying data from an existing table to a new table, over here you can use the where clause. So here is like this one, we did it already, right? Select into multiple examples, right? Like here is saying the following SQL statement creates a backup copy of customer table, right? So it's then select all into, this is the new table name from customer. So what it's gonna do, it will create another table with the name customer backup 2017, and it will have exactly same data what we have it in the customer table. So we do it very rarely, but they can ask anytime how you make a backup of your current table if you have to do any modification. So you can say we can use select into to make a backup of our current table, right? And the following SQL copy data into, so that's the same thing. Select customer name into the contact name into this table from customer. So what it's gonna do, it's gonna select these two columns and copy this into this backup table. We're gonna do this one more time when we will working and creating our own. Okay, so all right. The following SQL statement copies only the German customer into a new table. So select all into customer German. Where so what it's doing, we selecting all into this new table from existing table, and here we give condition where country is equals to Germany. So just fetch all the data from customer tables where the country is equals to Germany, and it will copy that data and paste it into the new table. That's what it's saying. The following SQL statement copy data from one and more table. Okay, and that's how with a join you can copy data from more than one table, right? Here we fetch the data, we say this is the customer table, right? And we fetch the customer name from customer table, we fetch the order ID from the order table into, this is the new table name from customer table, but we did the join on the order table, and that was the join condition. So what it will do, it will fetch the order ID from the order table, it will fetch the customer name from the customer table, and create a backup of those into this table name. And these will be the two column, that will be added into this new table. So the tip here is the select into can also be used to create a new empty table using the schema of another. Just add where clause to that query and return no data. Yeah, that can. And this is another way, select all into new table from old table where 1 is equals to 0. So the 1 should be the new one, is equals to 0 should be the old one. That's how it make a new copy. So we're gonna try this one, select into what when we're gonna work on the SQL developer. We just have this 1, 2, 3. We just have these 3 topics left, which we will cover hopefully on Tuesday, because Monday is holiday. So we will have class on Tuesday then, inshallah. And so then we'll start with this topic maybe on Wednesday, I guess, and then we'll create our own table, and then we will use all of these again on the tables we created, and then also the select into, we can do it over there to create some new tables and all that. But if somebody have any question on that select into, we can discuss right now. or any previous topic or anything. So we can discuss. I'll send the task tonight later, hopefully. Not prepared right now. But the select into clause, we understand, right? What we can do, we can make a copy of the existing table and insert it into a new table using a select into clause, right? And you just have to understand how the syntax work, right? So if you understand the syntax, you know, if you do select all, you will select all column, insert it into a new table. If you do select with a column name is specified, that means you inserting those columns only into a new table, right? If you want to fetch data from multiple tables into one new table, then you have to that select into, but in the from here, and then you can do the joins, you know, what one join you want to use, inner join, outer join, and all that. And then you can fetch multiple table column into this select as well. Plus, you can have a where clause in the end as well to specify the condition if you don't want to fetch all the data from the customer table, right? And if you wanted to only fetch the, let's say, the country USA data, so you can put a where, and then you can say like the country is equals to USA. So what it will do, it will fetch the data from the customer table where the country is equals to USA and put all that into the new table. So that's how the select into work. And normally we use the select into to make a backup of the existing table, right? Because sometimes we have to run some script which we think that can mess up the data inside that table. So what we do, we create a backup of that table, play around with that backup table rather than using the existing main table, right? uh, so that's why the select into used. I think I might send the task from this first topic up till here, right? And we mainly cover this time from the joins till the select into. So this will be the main area, but the question can be from the first one till this one. We can have it from any of it. And we need to practice at least 30 minutes to an hour every day other than a class. Otherwise, this start getting tough and will get tougher and
Sabay, when will we be moving on to the Oracle software?
you mean the SQL developer we have, right?
Right, the one you had us
So
download.
what we're gonna do, we're gonna cover this topic, right? These three topics, right? And after that, we're not gonna do the store procedures over here because I'm gonna show you on the actual one. So then that, like you can say that hopefully these three we can cover on Wednesday, right? Tuesday, I guess. Then Wednesday, we're not gonna create any database and all that because this is basically the DBA job, not our job. I'll explain what is DBA and what we are. I'll start this one, the create table one, and then creating new tables, and we use our own SQL developer while we're gonna create new tables. And from there on, we will repeat everything what we did over here onto SQL developer. So we'll do one more round of practice with actual tables and on the actual environment.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. So hopefully by Wednesday we will do that.